On today's episode, 11 Live's Ron Jones joins the show. Originally from the San Francisco Bay Area, he joined the team back in 2016, and his journey to get from there to here is like nothing you've ever heard of. The Rundown Reggie Chatman Show starts right now. Yes, sir! Welcome on in, everybody. I'm Reggie Chatman, and welcome to the depths of 11 Live Studios, and welcome to the Rundown with Reggie Chatman. I'm your host and probably your play cousin, Reggie Chatman, and on this show, the basic idea is we're trying to find a way to connect traditional media and what the culture is in Atlanta. This is, although it is a sports podcast because I'm one of the sports reporters and anchors here at 11 Alive, it's going to be anything but. Sports is a connection between everything that is music, culture, fashion, and much more. And the city of Atlanta is a city that's unique in the way that it does it in a way like nobody else, right? And so for that reason, the whole idea is to bring in different guests bi-weekly to talk about their journey, how they got to where they are, their connection to the city, and much, much more. So thankfully for me, I've got one of the coolest guests in the world to come on. Ron Jones, news anchor for 11 Alive. He anchors all our weekday shows in the evenings, and I couldn't have anybody else on the show, man. So obviously, thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me on your show.
So Ron, I think really the easiest way that we start this is just a general question. And we'll start with this. For people that don't know you and meet you out in public, maybe you're at a bar, at a restaurant or something, right? How would you describe yourself? Who are you, and what was your journey to get to where you are today?
I would say that I am a storyteller. I've been a storyteller all my life. I mean, ever since I was a little bitty kid, I've always been trying to be that storyteller, whether it was cartooning, whether it was drawing, whether it was on a tape recorder, back in the day when I was a little kid. But I've always been a storyteller. And no matter what job I've had, whether it's in the military or the Oakland Police Department, which makes it very unique, I always transitioned into telling stories, whether I was working, whether I was, in the infantry or the military police or as a police sergeant, I end up telling stories, whether it's training videos, just those sort of things.
I think it's interesting because your TV journey started while you were still a police officer back in 1988. And I'm curious, how did we get from how you grew up to being someone that joined the armed forces and as well somebody that's part of the police to be somebody that serves both for the country and for your community? What was it about your upbringing that I guess made you decide to go in that direction?
So here's the deal. My mom and dad were hardworking blue collar folks. And so we never talked about college, ever. We
Really?
just never talked about college. They're like, Ron, you're going to graduate from high school, maybe get a good job working for the city, maybe doing maintenance or something like that. Put in your 30, 40 years, get that watch, get that clock, retire, and then move on and just prepare for your end of life. But we never talked about college, but I always had this desire to go beyond just high school, to go beyond just getting a job. And I know the best thing for me to do at that time, and this was in 1976 when I graduated from high school, was I said, man, I need to join the Army. I need to at least have an opportunity to join the military services. It was right after the Vietnam War, so I can get that GI Bill, so I can eventually go to college, because it's something that we just never had a discussion about. So that's what I did. Joined the Army, married my high school sweetheart later on. We ended up having 4 kids. And during that journey, after I finished my military time, while I was there, I was still kind of storytelling, even though I was in the infantry and as a military police officer. I got out and I was going to school full time to do this. I was like, I want to do television news. So I got out of the Army in 1985 and I was in Oakland. I was going to school full time, but we were running out of food, clothing, shelter, and we were broke. I mean, we were poor. We couldn't even afford the other O and the R. We were so poor. So we were just broke. So I said, you know what? The best thing for me to do is just try to go find a really good high-paying job or a decent job so I could support my family of 4 at the time. And so I went down to the VA's office and they said, hey, the Oakland Police Department's hiring. Matter of fact, they're paying $50,000 to $60,000 a year. And that was back in 1985. Whew. And I know it's California, and I know California is expensive, but still it was reasonable for me to be able to take care of my family. So I put the dreams behind me of going into television news, being involved in broadcast at all. I joined the police department. I was very successful, did some crazy things, which we could talk about later as far as undercover type stuff. And but during that time, I started gravitating once again towards being a storyteller. Before you know it, man, I'm doing training tapes for the police department. I'm on cable access shows for the police department. And then eventually I made the jump with some mentor friends of mine who were reporters and anchors in the Bay Area. And I eventually made that leap into television news.
It's interesting because that journey is like I said, like none I've ever heard of, right? A lot of people's journey in this industry is really different and interesting but at the end of the day, I think, like you said, a lot of us just love what we do because we get a chance to storytell, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, like you said, you were coming out of high school. College was not something that you had decided that you were going to do. So I'm curious, as somebody where does that storytelling come from within you? And I guess, did you use any aspects of that while you were in the Army at the time to, I guess, keep that itch kind of going and understand that's really what you wanted to do?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, before you know it, even though I was in the infantry at the time, and then I transitioned into military police, but every time that I was at a base, somehow I ended up turning into an instructor. So this was way before video, way before Photoshop and all this other stuff. So I ended up drawing some of my training manuals out and photocopying them, Xeroxing them off, making several manuals that I hand drew, and then I would pass them out to other soldiers to teach them how to be better soldiers. So somehow, some way, I always transitioned into that, and I always wondered why. Where did that come from? It came from my dad. So growing up as a kid, he's got miles of film of us. He always had a camera, always shooting some type of film, 8mm, 16mm film. Always taking a picture, even though it took forever. He was always taking a picture of all of us. And then one day he bought me a tape recorder. It's a Panasonic tape recorder. Man, I grabbed that tape recorder. I started doing shows with it as a kid.
Really?
Yeah, just little shows. I had my nieces and nephews come over. We'd put together a little show on the tape recorder. I'd play it back. Then I started reading the news on the tape recorder. I'd grab the Oakland Tribune. I open it up. I'm 12, 13 years old. And I sound like I was a 6-year-old girl, but it was still cool. And I would read the news. And it seems like I was always gravitating towards doing what I'm doing now, even though my road obviously is a little different than the traditional way.
Whenever people ask me about how I got to what I'm doing now in sports, I always say that there was a man named Stuart Scott. He was a Sports Center anchor at ESPN for a really long time. I think he inspired a lot of people like me, young black sports anchors, just with the idea that you can be yourself on camera, you can be you and still make it to a level like that talking about sports. And he was probably the first person I'd ever seen that spoke like me and talked like me and was able to do it on the biggest, baddest stage. And I'm curious for you, coming up, as you're making these videos, and obviously like you've seen the news, you're reading off the newspaper and doing these shows, somebody had to inspire you to move in that kind of direction and kind of pique your interest that showed that it can be done. Who was somebody that maybe inspired you as you were coming up that showed you that maybe news is something that you'd be interested in?
You know, I think it was later on in life. Well, let me back up a little bit. When I was a kid, there was a male black anchor in the Bay Area. This was before your time. I know you're from the Bay Area too, but his name is Dennis Richmond. Okay. Dennis Richmond was the main anchor at KTVU. He had a big mustache, like a big police mustache, a big fro, and during the 70s and 80s, and he would deliver the news. I never saw a black man on television as the main anchor. I was like, what the heck? Dennis Richmond. And he was an icon. He's a legend. If you go back to the Bay Area in my generation, or maybe Gen Xers and Generation Xers, you would say, you remember Dennis Richmond? Of course they remember Dennis Richmond. The big fro, the mustache, and all of that. When I saw that, I said, well, if he can do that, I can do that. Because you begin to relate to people who look like you, who talk like you, and they begin to model it for you, then you begin to say, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And now you're thinking creatively about what is it going to take for me to get from where I am, to where they are. And Dennis Richmond was that person.
I think that's why I say exposure equals expansion. Just seeing people do things makes you feel like you can. It's funny how I had the exact same experience. I guess as you were you go through the Army and you come on out, you decide, of course, like you said, to join the Oakland Police Department. And you mentioned there's a time where things were not going as well, just money-wise, because you had this dream that you always wanted to chase, but you knew that you had to take care of your family. Was there a moment that you just decided, look, I'm done with TV in general? And did you ever think you'd make it back? And I mean, really, like you said, you had a couple of shows on there, so obviously you made it back, but was that always the plan?
Well, so this is how it all went down, actually. So I'm at the police department. By this time, they bring me into recruiting because they liked the way I gave presentations around the world. We even came to Atlanta one time trying to find officers. But there was a guy that was supposed to do a public service announcement about stealing cable. His name is R.E. Williams. R.E. Williams called in sick that day. So this guy by the name of Lieutenant People says, "Hey, Jones, I'm working in recruiting. Hey, man, I need you to go over here to this cable access show. You're going to shoot this thing about not stealing cable." I'm like, okay, cool, I'll go do that. So we did it, which I still have the video, it's crazy. So we did it, and I'm like, and don't steal video or don't steal cable. You're gonna go to jail, the FBI go hunt you down, blah, blah, blah. But I said it a lot more eloquently than that, right? Mm-hmm. And then before you know it, the general manager at the cable access place said, "You're pretty good." He says, "Why don't we do a show called Bay Area Crime Watch?" I'm like, okay, let me ask my boss. Before you know it, I got the fire going again. I was focused on being a cop, doing my 25 years, maybe moving on and working for the DA's office or something like that. But once again, I got inspired by this general manager. I start not only hosting the show, I start shooting the show. I start learning how to edit as I'm shooting weddings and all this other stuff. I start learning how to actually put the show together, how to produce the show. And that put me on the trajectory of where I am now.
Maybe what are some of the lessons that you learned from doing those shows? Like you said, Bay Area Crime Watch. There was also another show that you did, OPD TV.
OPD on TV.
Tell me about that show. And I mean, what was it like doing these shows, of course, without having the college training behind it either?
Well, because I had the desire. See, the one thing that I knew is that even though I didn't have the formal training, and I know we heard this before, especially in athletics, but I figured that I could still outwork anybody. So even though I don't have the opportunity to go to college and do the things that I should have been able to do, which I didn't, it just wasn't afforded to me, I'm always going to try to figure out a way to do a workaround or go around what traditionally is done and work harder at it to get to where I need to be. I mean, that's something that we can all learn from, right? Every single day. So I would go into that cable access studio, do OPD on TV, where we would feature wanted suspects throughout the Bay Area, and we had a card table, maybe a plastic plant behind us, and we had an audience, probably about 5. My mom, my dad were probably watching from home, and maybe my wife and my kids or something like that. We didn't have a big audience, but I had a huge dream. So I was like, okay, I see myself here, and we're doing these corny cable access shows, but I saw the future Ron Jones down the line. The future Ron Jones was going to be the reporter. The future Ron Jones that was going to be the anchor. And even though I didn't have the talent and the ability, I had the raw talent, didn't really have the experience, but I saw the vision, and I just refused to give up. And then it got to the point where a buddy of mine, her name is Sherry Hu, and she was a reporter and an anchor at CBS 5 in San Francisco, the CBS station. And she says, "Ron, you're pretty good at this. I'm going to show you how to do a stand-up because you have the desire. I'm going to show you how to write a package. I'm going to show you how to actually put your resume tape together. Then we're going to go to Atlanta, and we're going to go to this conference, and then you are going to shop your VHS tapes around to other news directors, and you are going to get a job. You're going to start in a small market, but you're going to work your way back to California." I'm like, "Sherry, I don't have a college degree. She's like, "I don't want to hear that." She says, "You have the ability. Let's put it together. This is what your resume tape's going to look like. We're going to go out to Atlanta." So we come to Atlanta. Can I keep on with this story?
Yeah, please.
All right, so check this out. So I come to Atlanta. This was in 1994 after I'd been promoted to sergeant. I was the chief's administrative assistant. So I come to Atlanta. I had 2 big suitcases. They're filled with VHS tapes, right? And so you go to this conference. It's called the Unity Conference. And NABJ was a part of it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm shopping myself around, handing out my resumes, handing out these resume tapes, and news directors are popping it in. They're looking at it, giving me some advice. Then there was this one dude, this one guy, this news director. He looked at my paper resume, and he said, "I see you didn't graduate from college." I says, "No, sir, serving my country and serving my city, my community proudly."
Use that, yeah.
I just need some
exactly,
advice.
Yeah, exactly.
Just pop the tape in. And he says, "You know what? I'm not looking at the tape." I'm like, "Okay." Well, he said, "Why?" He says, "Because you blew it." He says, "You see all these other people here at this conference? They went through the process of getting their degree and they earned being here, but you did not. He says, I look at your resume, I see that you have some graphic art experience, you have a little editing experience. He says, there's a job opening, minimum wage in Amarillo, Texas. We have a station there, we could probably fit you in there. So in my head, I'm thinking I'm gonna be professional. I'm gonna put up a bunch of filters, not say anything that's not gonna be unprofessional.
Right.
And back in the day, they would say just show them the hand, so to speak. But show them the hand, and then move on to the next news director. I'm telling you, despite the fact that he told me that it would never happen, that I blew it, it still didn't faze me one bit. I just continued to move on, and it was my faith in God too. So it's my faith in God that got me from where I was to where I am now. It's only by the grace of God that I'm doing this. So I go to the next news director, the next news director, the next news director. And then finally, Jim Kent with WDBJ7 in Roanoke, Virginia, pops my tape in, and he looks at it. He has a little smile on his face. And he says, you need to just change this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And, I think you might be okay, whatever. And that's all I wanted was just some advice. So I got the tape back. I fly back to Oakland. And I'm like, I really want to do this television news. So
you were inspired in that moment.
I was so fired up because Sherry, number one, she had the faith in me that I could do it. She exposed me to the industry and all these news directors, all these other reporters. I'm like, I can do this.
It's possible.
Give it to me, baby. I want it. So I was really fired up about it. But at the same time, I was like, I got this strong desire. I will continue to do these cable access shows, but I'm ready to move to the next level.
Yeah.
So I remember I was driving this unmarked police vehicle with my flip phone radio, my flip phone, cell phone, all this good stuff. I was, wearing just a suit. By that time, I'd been promoted to sergeant. I was the chief's administrative assistant. I'm driving down the street. And I'm like, God, I really want to do this, but if you don't want me to do this, just take the desire away from me, and then I will be a cop. I'll do my 25 years. I'll get my watch and my clock, and then I'll move on and work for the DA's office. Reggie, I want you to say the next day.
Next day?
The next day.
Oh my gosh.
I get a call from Jim Kent. He says, hey, listen, with his Southern accent, hey, listen, I just want to let you know that we're really interested in flying you out here to Roanoke, Virginia. Are you still interested in the job? I'm like, yeah, Jim, I'm interested in the job. He said, we'll fly you out and we'll do an audition. You meet the blah, 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 this, that, and the other. And so they fly me out within a week's time. And long story short, they give me a job offer. At that time, I was making like $72K for the Oakland Police Department. Yeah. And Jim was offering me $12 an hour. So I had to convince my wife, like, hey, I really want to do this. Man, my wife, I just love her so much. Yeah. She says, I'm behind you. Let's do it. Let's use some of your 401k so we can survive for a year and a half or whatever before you move on to another market. But it was the inspiration of Sherry who saw the vision. She saw the future Ron Jones. That's why mentors are so important, Reggie. You've got to be able to hook up with mentors. And even if you can't hook up with a mentor in person, even if it's virtual, if you're listening to somebody on YouTube or a podcast, somebody that would inspire you, that could put you in the room. It was people like Sherry, though, that I was in the room with her that inspired me to do what I'm doing now. And here's the crazy thing. Yeah. Am I talking too much?
No, please.
Okay, so here's the crazy thing. So the same dude who told me that I would never, ever make it in this business.
Yeah, I was going to ask about him.
Later on, I find out at the time, he was the news director at 11 Alive News. At that time.
Rob, there's no way.
It's the truth.
There's no way that's true.
So let me tell you why it's the truth.
What?
Yes. He was the news director here.
That's insane.
I ain't gonna say his name.
Yeah, we don't have the name drop.
No, we have the name drop.
Yeah, no.
So let me tell you how I found out that it was the same guy who told me that my dreams will never come to fruition, that you'd probably be a graphic artist making $6 an hour down in Amarillo, Texas. So what happened is when I finally got here, I ended up speaking with Jennifer Rigby, our former news director, and I told her about my journey just a little bit. I really wasn't into it. And she said, oh, the news director was so-and-so. And she described him. He's about, little short guys. Yeah, that's him. She said, oh, he was different. And I said, that's the same dude. So I always saw it as man, that was a wink from God, like, see, I got you, boy.
Right.
I got you. So it showed me also that for someone, if you never give up, you stay focused. And man, I crash and burn so many times in television news, so many times. And I feel like it's still a learning process. But if you don't give up and you continue to focus on your future self, you can have other people over here who have a small vision that you can eliminate that person or not let them be an influence on your path or your trajectory to your success. And Jennifer Rigby, that day downstairs in the newsroom, when she told me that guy was the news director here, it was just confirmation of why you should never, ever give up.
It's incredible, man. I mean, just it's funny how, and you mentioned God, it's funny how God works and the path that'll set for you, right? And I think it's interesting when you meet a lot of us in this creative space, because at the end of the day, all of us that work in TV, whether on camera, behind the camera, all of us are creators, right? We all like creating, we all like storytelling, right? And to get to a level like this, or really to any TV station in the country, you got to have this kind of, I don't know, blind faith, this extra confidence to you that you can kind of do it and achieve it, despite the fact that all of us, Kanye West once said that we're all kind of self-conscious.
Yeah.
I'm just the first to admit it, right? Because it's art. It's putting ourselves out there and exposing ourselves to others and hoping that people like it, right? I think my question for you is, throughout the process where your path is going to obviously look a little bit different, you've got these barriers in front of you, whether you don't have the college degree or you don't have the traditional training or you don't know how you're going to get there. What was it that you kept in the back of your mind that kept pushing you forward to not think about this news director that told you couldn't do it? Although you didn't know the path to get there, you had this idea in the back of your mind that you knew you could get it done because that was your passion. What kept you going in times?
I really believe that it was part of my military training, being in the infantry and being a military police officer, working at OPD, doing a little undercover work, which kind of exposes you to some dangers, a few of them. And I mean, I didn't do that all the time, but I did it several times so I can get a better idea of how to better serve my community. But you get to the point where you say to yourself, I've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
So I'm uncomfortable right now being in front of this camera. I'm uncomfortable starting that brand new business. I'm uncomfortable starting a brand new show, whatever, right? Once you understand that that is part of the process, that's part of your journey, that you're going to be uncomfortable, you just do it anyway. You have to say to yourself, I'm going to do today what most people won't, because that's what I would do back then. I'm going to do today what most people won't, so I can have tomorrow what most people can't. So what's going to make the difference?
Pause and say that again.
Okay.
Because they didn't hear you.
I know. And I tell my kids this all the time, right, when they were growing up. I would say, listen, you've got to do today what most people won't, so you can have tomorrow what most people can't. So that you understand that.
Clip that. Somebody clip that, because
that was good.
That's real good.
That was good. That gave me chills. I've been saying it for the past 30 years, But, I always tell my kids that. I tell other people that they have to understand that the rough is going to be road. I mean, the road is going to be rough. So when I first got my first TV job at WDBJ7, got on air, it was horrible.
It was bad?
It was bad, man.
What do you remember about those times where you're just trying your best to just try to do TV?
Dude, I really so I remember my first live shot. It was
of course, we all do.
We all do. Horrifying. But it was a feature story, so it was around Christmas time. And so I had to go to the post office, and they're bringing all these packages and just talk about how hard the postal workers are working and the conveyor belts. I had photographers shooting and all this good stuff. And so I was going to be somewhere in the 5 o'clock show. And Keith Humphrey was the anchor of WDBJ7 back then.
Right.
He's going to toss to Ron Jones at the local post office, to talk about the packages that are coming in.
The TV voice is so good.
Right. And so I'm in the bathroom 2 hours prior to that. I'm practicing. I'm praying. I'm like, okay, God, you got to help me with this and this, that, and the other, doing all this stuff. And I'm thinking about what I'm going to say, how I'm going to say it. I'm going to point to the packages and then go to my story, do all these different things. So before Keith tosses to me, they play Andy Griffith, right? The credits for Andy Griffith. Okay, Here we go. Now we hear the open. Okay, hear the open from WDBJ. And now I'm hearing Keith says, welcome to WDBJ, your hometown station, blah, blah, blah. And we have now Ron Jones out there at the post office with the very latest something. That is the last thing I remember.
You just blacked out, right?
They tossed to me. And then before you know it, dude, I start mumbling something. I don't know if I was speaking in tongues or something, but I start mumbling something and I start stepping back away from the camera. The photog does one of these, "What's up?
What are you doing?
What you doing?" And then I don't know what I said, bro. And then the first thing I thought was, I just blew it, man, for our team.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. I blew it not just for me, but for our team. So I went back to the station. I'm apologizing and all this other stuff. And a mentor of mine said, "Let me tell you something. If you keep apologizing, and I was calling, I'm just a rookie, I'm just learning.
Yeah.
If you keep apologizing, you keep calling yourself a rookie, you keep saying that you're still learning, you're going to be here in Virginia for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
You've got to watch yourself talk. You can't call yourself a rookie. You can't focus on how it was a disaster the night before. You've got to figure out a way to keep moving forward." So this is what I did.
Yeah.
Am I talking too much, bro?
No, this is,
we're rolling. Okay, so
this is fantastic.
So check this out, which I got video evidence of this. So what I would do.
We need a copy of it. I need to see this.
Oh man, it's like crazy. So this is what I did. I said, you know what? I'm struggling with these live shots. I set up my VHS tape. I pop the tape in. I'm sitting in the living room. I'm doing fake live shots in my living room. As you can see, there's a fire behind me. We're doing this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
As you see, this is going. I just kept practicing, popping it back into our television set, rolling it back. I start seeing the future Ron Jones, even though he had no experience. I was trying to play catch up to those of you who already had that college degree, right? And then when they put me on the anchor desk, which is a totally different scenario, which we won't go into depth about that because it was some disastrous situations.
You give me like one story of that.
All right, so let me tell you what happened.
Because that's what you do now, right? Because we need to figure out how you got to here.
Okay, so this is what happened the first time. They're like, because by that time I was pretty good at reporting, especially crime stuff.
I locked it down.
Yeah,
especially the crime stuff.
Yeah,
that's right up your alley.
Yeah, it was like, give me the ball, boom. I'm just shooting from 3 points, doing the reporting and stuff like that. So they're like, Jim's like, "Hey, Ron, you know what? You're doing pretty good." And this is after 6 months. We're thinking about making you the weekend anchor. Oh, shoot. Yeah, baby. Make me the weekend anchor.
No, you're feeling it now.
I'm feeling it now.
You have confidence in you now.
Give me the rock. Give me the rock. So, anyway, the first day that I had to go out there and anchor, I wanted to make sure I looked good because I still had the cop mustache and all that.
Oh, man.
Oh, dude. So anyway, I'm trimming my cop mustache, but I think I trimmed it down a little too far.
Okay.
I mean, it was like a little too far. It didn't. I didn't even want to tell you what. It just looked bad. My hair was all jacked up. I didn't button up my suit. My jacket was open. Big old fat tie because this is the 80s, or the early 90s. Looking like a little Steve Harvey situation, but just unkept. And then, they do the jib shot. They come to me. I am terrified because I'm thinking, there's nowhere to go. I'm it. I am the show.
Yeah.
There's no co-anchor. The weather dude is over there, Patrick. He's over there doing his little weather stuff, looking back over me like, let's see how this works out. Sports guy's doing his thing. I am the show.
And it hit you in that moment as the jib
is coming down.
Not before. It was
as soon as I heard the open from WDBJ, which I got. I don't think I had the first one, but I still have shots of me, and I'm looking at myself at the old VHS tape. You could tell I am terrified. So I didn't do that well.
Right.
But they didn't give up on me, and I didn't give up on myself. So this is what I did every day. So when I had to report, I said, Ron, okay, you did the practicing at home with your live shots. You got the reporting down. You need to focus on the anchoring, bro. So I would come in the morning, like when I had to report Monday through Wednesday, I would come in every Monday morning. I would grab scripts out of the garbage can from the morning show in a dark studio. I would read that show 3 or 4 times before my shift started as a reporter. Come in early, and now I am anchoring in the dark, reading scripts, pretending as if the show is actually happening. Then what I would do is I would take VHS tapes and I would record the teleprompter of the 5 to 6 and 11, take that home, put it up on my screen, and I would read the teleprompter as if I'm doing the news. Then I would, in the morning before I even went in to get the scripts out of the garbage can, I would fire up my computer. I mean, it was like really slow back then, right? And then I would open up CNN.com and they would have news briefs. I would sit in my bedroom and I would read the news like I would read as if I'm sitting on the anchor desk. Because I knew that if I would practice success every single day and not look at the past of where I failed or where I screwed up, but continue to look forward, then I was going to get better.
That future Ron.
Yeah. And then before you know it, I got someone reached out, a news director reached out to me from Detroit. I wasn't ready for Detroit. I was not ready for Detroit, but they reached out to me from Detroit, and then Baltimore, and then Sacramento. And then finally, I took the job in Sacramento. But what I learned from that is, even if you're going through a valley, even if you feel like, man, things are just crumbling around me, I'm not getting to where I need to be. What you've got to do is just continue to push forward. You can't live in the past because you will be paralyzed if you're continuously living in the past. But you've got to look forward to your future self and continue to walk that way. And so that was part of my journey. That was a long version, but that was part of my journey of getting better as a reporter and getting better as an anchor. Because a captain at OPD, her name is Captain Phyllis Galloway, at the time, she says, Ron, if this TV stuff doesn't work out, come on back home to OPD. We give you 2 years because you'll still be certified. Come on back. I'll guarantee that you have a job. I'm like, oh, thank you, Captain. But I was like, no, I'm burning that bridge. I'm like I went to this, I sailed this ship to this island. I set that ship on fire because I'm not going back. So I knew that I was just going to have to ride the wave of crashing and burning until I got better.
And just doing whatever it possibly took to get it done.
Absolutely.
I'm curious as to, for someone who didn't have the, like you said, the proper training, where did the idea of how to improve come from, right? I think everybody recognizes, especially when you get into this industry, there's things I got to work on, right? And
right.
We all, in creative ways, try to find ways to improve, especially the people that really want to succeed, like you and future Ron wanted to do, right? Where did that aspect of your go-gettedness come from? The idea is to grab the scripts out of the trash can, the pulling up and reading CNN. I mean, not a lot of people will want to do that because it's extra work.
Right.
Where did that come from you? And did your parents, who have obviously created your journey, have any influence on where that kind of comes from?
That's a really good question. So my mom and dad, blue-collar workers. I told you about that. My mom was a licensed vocational nurse. She worked in Oakland, like from 8 to 4, 8 to 3, something like that. My dad was a maintenance man and a truck driver for a banking system in Northern California. So that's what they did during the day. Every single night, 2 o'clock in the morning, every night, they had a side hustle. So they had a janitorial service.
Wow.
So they would get up 2 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday. They would get up, go out, they would clean like 4 to 5 different banks, and then they would come back. My mom would fix my dad some breakfast, take a quick shower, put on their regular clothes, and head out to work. And so that work ethic about not giving up and not making excuses, because excuses, which you probably heard before, excuses are nothing more than the crutches of the uncommitted. Wow. So what I learned from them is don't make any excuses, just go for what you need to go for. So I knew that when I was in Roanoke, Virginia, when I got to Sacramento, when I came out here to Atlanta, if things don't go right, I can't make any excuses. The other thing is really important, Reggie, and I don't mean to point at you like that.
No, please, no, we're here. It's me and you right now.
Yeah,
this is it.
Yeah. So the other thing is I had to teach myself to stay away from naysayers, from anybody that can cloud my judgment and my perception of my future. Because if you hang around a bunch of naysayers, and because they want you to go, these are people who ain't going nowhere and they want you to go with them.
Right.
They ain't doing nothing. They want you to do it with them, right? So you stay away from those naysayers and you watch who you hang around, because whoever you hang around is exactly who you're going to become. So I began to just focus on those things that were going to bring that positive energy to me. And you couple that with a work ethic, nothing is impossible. You can have that Mamba mentality.
There it is. Let's bring the set into it.
Yeah, you have that Mamba mentality, because here's the deal. The reason why I went in there and practiced all the time, I wasn't good at basketball, but I know that if I was missing free throws like Shaquille O'Neal all the time, then what I would do is I would go in the gym and I would shoot. 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 So whatever is seen in private or whatever is seen in darkness is going to eventually show up in the light. So I knew that if I could just go in there and practice in the dark, if I go at home and practice in front of that VHS camera and just do it before I actually go out there on the set, my work behind the scenes will show up on camera. And so that was just part of the drive. My mom and dad, that work ethic, and me never just giving up.
It's unbelievable. I feel like we have to ask about this just because it's such important part of your journey. You mentioned not like burning the boats and like being all in on something. And in TV, obviously we're on television. There is a bit of showmanship to it. We're not acting, but we're on camera, right? Yeah. We are presenting and doing that. Obviously the stakes are a little bit higher when you're an undercover police officer.
Yeah.
Can you give me a story as to maybe one of the times where things got a little sketchy and you had to try and, I guess, collect yourself in a certain moment where you thought things might get a little shifty because you really didn't have another option?
No, okay. So it was the first time I bought crack cocaine.
Okay.
That was a terrifying experience. But okay, so here's the deal. So I worked in West Oakland, and West Oakland during that time, there was a huge problem with a lot of violence in the city of Oakland, all across the country because of crack cocaine. The drug dealers were just running rampant. And so I worked a particular beat where it was just a problem for me when I worked graveyard. I'm like, these dope dealers, man, they're just robbing people, they're doing this, that, and the other. I need to find out how they do what they do. Where do they hide the dope? How does the whole system work? So I went to our undercover unit, like our vice unit. It was a special duty unit. I said, can I just volunteer and just go out and be a decoy?
What in the world made you decide to do that, Ron? You could have stayed at the station. You could have just keep doing
went from call to call, and yes,
you would have been fine.
No, dude.
What in the world put you in the danger? Was your wife cool with that at the time? Why would you do that?
My wife was always praying for me because I was doing a lot of nutty things like that. So, but I needed to know. Man, I felt like I was Captain America. Like I need to save my little geographical beat that I was in charge of, find out who the players were. So anyway, I go to SDU or the special duty unit. I'm like, okay, yeah, Jones, you can come along, So I get in the car with this guy. His name is George Phillips. He's retired. Another brother, his name is Carlos. And I'm sitting in the right rear passenger seat. George is in the right front passenger seat. Carlos is driving. And there's an old raggedy hoopty. Right, so we're driving through East Oakland, West Oakland, and so they're trying to show me this is how you buy the dope, this is how it works, or whatever. So now it's like, all right, Jones, we're driving up to, it's called the Acorn Project, which has been torn down. And they're like, Jones, you're up. And so we're joking about this. Can I be candid?
Please.
Okay, so we're joking about it, like, okay, more than likely, the dope dealer gonna shoot you in the head, and as you're fading to black, I'm gonna run up and grab your wallet, So we're talking crazy stuff like that.
Wild.
The reason is called comic relief.
Okay.
Right.
It doesn't sound very funny to me. I'm like,
right.
You tell me to go in there and get shot. I don't know if I'm signing up for that, right?
No. And they, it's just whatever. So
that's
anyway,
all you can do.
We're driving through, and this young dude flags us down, and he flags us down like, Jones, you're up. So I get out the car. I'm trying to be all cool. I'm like, hey, brother, I'm trying, I forgot what they call it, a dove or something like that. I forgot what they call it.
Don't ask me.
We'll just say 20, how can I get a $20 piece, He says, are you the police? I'm like, are you the police? Because you got to play that game,
This is with the guy?
Yeah.
This is not you training with the other. This is in the moment.
This is in the moment with the guy who flagged us down.
Oh, my gosh.
He said, are you the police? I'm like, oh, you the police. That's what's up with you? Because you got to play that game.
Of course.
He's like, no, I ain't the police. All right. Well, anyway. And so he says, okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to take you into the projects, and I'm going to walk you through this maze to the actual dope dealer dude, right?
Yeah.
Because he's just the guy who flagged. He's the salesperson. He's going to take me to the product to purchase this illegal narcotic. So we go back there, and we're going through this maze, and I go up to this front door. And I'm thinking, Ron, do not get in the cop pose where you understand tactically where this person is or where that person is, because you're going to give yourself away. So I'm like standing here looking at the dude who just comes out the door who asked me the same question. Are you the police? Are y'all the police? That's, what's up? I just want to buy a rock, brother. So the guy is standing behind me who brought me in there, and I'm thinking he's going to hit me in the head at any moment and take this money, take this fake money. It was real money, but this marked money.
Right.
So the guy's like, okay. And so I give him the 20, this guy here in front of me. The guy's standing behind me again. So he reaches into his mouth and he brings out a nasty, slimy baggie. And he's like, boom, puts it in my hand. I'm like, this is nasty. That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
But I'm like, thank you, because I'm a crack addict. I give him the 20. I take the money. I put it in my pocket. I'm walking out with this other dude who's the salesperson. I'm walking back. I give the signal to Carlos and them. They're in the hoopty car, who gives a signal to the arrest team. They all swoop in. As they're swooping in, I'm looking at the guy who's made the sale. We're both running. Like, what? What's happening?
Oh, so you had to stay in character.
Gotta stay in character.
You can't just be like, gotcha.
Yeah, because then before you know it, if somebody else sees me on the street. So I end up running, and sometimes they hook you up. They'll hook you up, take you somewhere, and let you out. You go to the next one. So here's the crazy thing. With that, I survived that. End up buying like 3 or 4 more times over a week's period, which was just exhilarating. It was just crazy. So anyway, that night, when I still had to work the graveyard shift, and I walk into the jail because I had arrested someone for something, and there was a guy. There was a guy who was arrested that took me in, the sales dude.
Yeah.
He took me in, right? So I look at him behind the bars. I have my full uniform on at this time, the hat, the badge, the gun, nightstick. And I look at him. He looks at me. He doesn't recognize me. So I walk up to him. I'm like, man, what they got you in here for? He says, man, they said I was selling dope. Man, I wasn't selling no dope. I says, dude, you need to fight that. That's what I told him.
Right.
He had no idea.
Right. You're just in there stirring the pot.
It was wrong. It was wrong. But he had no idea. But it shows you how, as terrifying as it is, you have to be, I don't know if there's a moral to this story, but you got to be comfortable, being uncomfortable to be able to do what you want to do in life.
That's unbelievable, man. That's unbelievable. I do want to talk about your time here in Atlanta. You joined obviously the crew here in 2016 at the station where the one guy, the old news director, told you couldn't work at, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember the moment that you got the call to make the big jump to come here? And I guess when you made that, you decided to make the decision to move cross country, to move to this city that, although you never had lived in, you had that moment where you're handing out these tapes and there's that connection to it all. Does that moment, and how special is this city, just knowing that although you didn't know it at the time at multiple points, it's a big part of how your career has shaped you to be here?
Yeah, so I got a call on July 7th, 2016 from Jennifer Rigby. And she had our former news director here, and she had looked at my video, not my tape, but my video, whatever.
We're in video now. It's not no longer tape. We're on the way up now.
Those days are over. And so she says, hey, we're interested in this, that, and the other. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, Atlanta. So because I had an opportunity through Tegna to possibly go to Tampa, Austin, Texas, or Atlanta. No question.
Wow.
Wanted to come here to Atlanta.
Why?
Because of the culture.
Yeah.
And the history of Atlanta. And because the last time, which I learned later on, man, I know this is crazy, but it's true, it's verifiable, is my great-grandfather was which I learned later on, was a slave here in Atlanta, up in LJ. Not in Atlanta, but up in LJ. So about an hour and a half away from here, which I learned later on. But just the history of Atlanta, I was like, I want to go to Atlanta. I don't want to go to Tampa. I don't want to go to Austin, Texas. I've got to go here. And so from that moment in time, I knew that I was supposed to be here. And then within 3 to 4 months, here's the cool thing.
Yeah.
So here's the cool thing is I didn't have any MMJ experience. None. I knew how to shoot weddings. I knew how to shoot, because we had a union in Sacramento, so I couldn't shoot stories.
Yeah.
And I knew how to shoot, and I was involved in my church, so I would shoot a lot of promos for my church and put things together, edit. And so Jennifer Rigby took a chance on me with no MMJ experience, no formal training, and brought me here, and it worked out.
So when you joined, you were still shooting, writing, editing. I mean,
now you're
the anchor.
Yeah,
so you're big time now.
Well,
when you came in, it was shooting and going out in the streets and live shots and all that as well?
Yeah, I had to do all that stuff.
Wow.
So, I mean, I was the weekend anchor by that time, because I was the weekend anchor and morning dude back in Sacramento. But when I got here, I had to retrain myself to not have a photographer, but to go out and to shoot and think backwards, right? So to make sure I hit my time slot for 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, or whatever, and not be as competitive maybe by myself. But I had to relearn all those different things. And it was a lot of crashing and burning there too, but I wouldn't give up, and I just continued to press on. And Jennifer trusted that I could do it, and it happened.
It's unbelievable. Both of us from the West Coast, both of us from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
The South, as I'm sure you can agree to, is very different than it is over on the West Coast.
Yes.
People are different.
Yeah.
How people act are different. But I love it here in the South. I
Yes.
think it's a beautiful, beautiful place. I think Atlanta is super unique in the idea that you mentioned that culture aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
In the Bay Area, the African American population is not as high as it is here.
I know.
You know what I mean? And I think for me, when I moved here, that was something that really drew me to the city of Atlanta, because it felt like it could be home, you know? And there's that culture that you kind of tap into. When you came to Atlanta and the other times you've been to Atlanta before you got the job here, was that part of your decision-making process? And I think you mentioned that culture. What is it about the culture that you think makes this city so special now that you've really come to become a real part of it?
You know, so this is something I saw, first of all, is I was like, and this is the truth. I was like, wow, there's a lot of black anchors on TV.
It's crazy, right?
Never saw that in the
I
Bay
had never
Area.
seen it. My first time walking through this newsroom, seeing you and Jennifer
know.
Bellamy and Aisha Howard, and I mean, we're rolling through, and it's like,
Is this
huh?
is
The
this okay?
Black producers, black
Yeah.
editors, like, I mean, I'd never seen anything like it when I rolled through this newsroom the first time. I was like, this is incredible.
It really, and so, because I remember a couple of times, like if I was in, and this is the truth, man, if I'm in Sacramento or if I'm in California, and if you have a male black, female black anchor, I'm like, they're not going to like this. This ain't going to work. But I never anchored with a black woman
Wow.
in one of the most, if not the most progressive state in the country, in California,
Crazy.
right?
Yeah.
And so when I would anchor with J Bell, or if I anchor with Aisha or with others, I would say, is this legal? Or is this okay?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah. I mean, this is normal. And so that's the one thing I noticed. Also, I see a lot more black professionals, attorneys and doctors and all of those folks that I didn't see as many when I was in the Central Valley or in the Bay Area. And so all that is fascinating and inspiring as well.
There's obviously so much that goes on in this city. Whether it's, like you said, it's the culture and how it drives so much that goes on, not just in the state, but not even just in the country. You've got Atlanta influence really worldwide.
Yeah.
What are some of the aspects of this city that you've grown to really love and appreciate, that, you know, like you said, maybe make it so special outside of just being in this newsroom, like outside when you're going around, that make it so different from anywhere else on the planet?
Well, you know, my wife and I, we have absolutely immersed ourselves into nonprofit organizations. So we go out once a month when we can, and we interact with the homeless community. I mean, we like hit the streets with some, I'm not saying this to say, hey, look at me, this is what we do. But this is what we do.
Right.
So we go out there just to be able to see the challenges that they're facing. I mean, living underneath bridges, just some horrific situations. And so we go out there, we give them hygiene kits. We give them food. If we have some clothes, we give that to them. Just a group of us, we do that. We hit these several spots throughout Atlanta all the time. And but it makes me grateful. It really helps me to be centered and understand how blessed I truly am by me going out to help so many people and seeing other folks who go out with us to do that. And I'm also involved, my wife and I are involved in this nonprofit called Mending the Gap. And these are senior citizens here throughout Metro Atlanta who are trying to make ends meet. You know, they're only on Social Security or fixed income. And so they also take food out to them because they don't have transportation to get to them, or they're disabled, or maybe they don't even have family, you know. So that's how I feel really connected to this community, is those who are suffering, or those who are going through some really tough times.
I think it's interesting too. There's, in the social media age, and just the fact that you can now expose and have your voice hit millions of people at a drop of a hat with your phone, and you can kind of get it done, right? I think what really gets me about you is you've got all these layers to you, and you choose to share it with others on social media, whether it's your Motivational Mondays and these videos that you put out, whether it's on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. Why is it important for you to do that? It's not something that you'd have to do. You're already on TV here. You're already doing your thing. Why is it that you take extra time out of your schedule with the set that you've got set up at your home,
Right.
to impart wisdom upon others?
I am 64 years old. I only have so much more time on this planet. I don't want to look back on my life and like, hey, look at me. I made it to the top 10 market and blah, blah, blah. I want to be able to leave something behind for other people that will be inspiring. It was Sherry Who. It was my mom and dad. They were inspiration for me. It was Sherry Who. Other folks as well in the Bay Area, other reporters and anchors that helped me along the way. But it was because of their influence is the reason why I'm here today. So I do it only because I want to inspire other people. I want to let them know that whatever they're focused on, whatever they want to become, that it's possible if they don't give up. And we're hit with so much negativity on social media, so much negativity in the news. You could be discouraged. It's like, oh man, we got inflation, we got a recession looming, we got this, that, and the other, another shooting at a gas station, all these different things. If you begin to focus on those negative things, you'll think that there's no hope. So I try to bring a sense of hope, a sense of encouragement to let them know that anything is possible if you're in the right frame of mind. You got to fix this up here first to be able to go after what you want in the future, or to actually become your future self. But that's why I do it, because man, I only have so much time left, brother. You only have so much time.
Right.
Connor, who is sitting behind the cameras, only has so much time left, And so we can't just think about being a reservoir, like gimme. How much can I get? How much money? How much recognition? Look at me. Even though we do a little bit of that too.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's part of what we do.
It is what it is. It's part of the job.
Right. We got to do that too. But I think it's important to be able to give back. That's why we're involved in nonprofits, and that's why I try to give motivational Mondays, Tuesdays, whenever I can.
And you mentioned how, because of the way that social media has kind of shifted, it's a lot of like, look at me. And a lot of times when people that use social media, they maybe get discouraged by maybe view count or followers or that whole aspect of things, right? But when the idea, of course, is to inspire others, maybe for you, it doesn't matter about that side of things, right? Have you seen, I guess, how have you kind of felt the impact that you've made? Have you had people come up and tell you, or is it the comments? What is it that, I guess, shows you that you're making an impact? Or do you do it regardless?
I'm going to do it regardless.
Right.
So, I am not a big influencer. I think I only have 2,600 followers on Instagram. I got 30K though on Facebook.
Yeah, that's a flex. That's big time.
But dude, if I only get 17 likes, I'm cool with that.
Right.
Because there's this one young lady, and she's been going through some tough times out there in Sacramento. And she told me, she's like, Ron, I look forward to this. You got to keep doing it. And Naima Abdullahi, she does the same thing.
She's the best.
Because I had stopped for a minute, and she came to me. She texted me like, where is the Motivational Mondays?
Right.
Where is this stuff? I need to see it, and people need to see it. So I may not be influencing 17,000 people. Man, if I can influence 17 or 7 or 3, if I can make their day, then I know it's not about me. It's about them.
What kind of feeling does that give you, knowing that what you're doing is helping, knowing that that's something that throughout your career, you've always done, whether it was in the Army or with the police, it's always been part of you. Yeah. Do you like that aspect that you can help people, and what we are a service industry, giving people the news, but offering that aspect of it as well? Does that give you a more fulfilling feeling and continue to press on doing it despite the fact you don't have to?
Absolutely, man, because I believe that we are created to serve other people. When you get to the point where you think it's all about me, and you live on this moat, this island with this moat around you, and you just want all the adoration and stuff like that, I think you're not living your best life. But living your best life is not thinking about what can I do or what can I get from this, but how can I help others? I've mentored some other young reporters, when I've gone through the struggles that we talked about at WDBJ7, and even up to now, there's some things where I have to fight the resistance of not making the same mistakes as I did back at WDBJ7 when I first started. But if I can help a young reporter to become better, to influence them so they can make more money, get to a bigger market. It is absolutely worth it. So that's why I do what I do, to try to serve other people. Because, and I'm not going to pass around an offering plate or nothing like that.
I'm ready to donate. So.
Yeah, but there's a scripture that says that, those who are first shall be last, and those who are last shall be first. If you make yourself last and you serve other people, you shall be first, because you're a giver. And so you got to think in terms of, how can I give to someone? Like for Reggie. Reggie's like, how do I bring up the next Reggie Chatman? How can I find that person or those people who aspire to be in the top 10 market, right?
Right.
Top 10 market. And one of the sports anchors here, or even Connor, who's behind the scene, how can he inspire other people who want to do what he's doing? What did it take? What was his journey to get there? What was your journey? And then you can be an inspiration to others. You could be like Sherry, who told me, stop talking about your limitations. You get that suitcase, you fill it up with them VHS tapes, and we're going to Atlanta. So that's the person you want to become.
Ron, we've talked a lot about future, Ron, and how in your past you'd always been looking towards the future and working towards that goal constantly. As we wrap up our show in the last 5 minutes here, I'm curious as to what's next for you. You're in a good position, as one of the lead news anchors at a top 6 market in the entire country, doing all the evening shows. You, of course, just got the promotion some months ago to do all of them at the late night hours. What's next for you? What do you hope to accomplish over the next 5-10 years, and what is the future for Future Ron?
I'm already working on some things right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can't go into a lot of details, but I've always felt that either you're going to be relevant or you're going to be a relic. Don't want to be a relic. I've got to always be relevant. So I'm always looking forward. I mean, some of the things that I'm like diving into all the time is ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, all those things that it's going to disrupt what we do every day. It's going to disrupt what you do in sports. Right. It's going to disrupt what I do as a reporter and anchor. It's going to disrupt what those behind the scenes are going to do. But I look at it this way: instead of being afraid of it, embrace it, understand it, and figure out, how can I be that person in the future to benefit from this artificial intelligence? Some folks in our business are thinking, oh man, this artificial intelligence is going to take my job and stuff like, yeah, it is going to take your job. It's going to take your job, but it's going to give the job to somebody who understands it. So and this is what some of the movers and shakers are saying. And the reason why I'm looking that far ahead into some things that I'm dabbling in and things that I'm doing is because I know that this have a shelf life, what we're doing. That's a shelf life. It's going to go away, or it's going to morph into something else. So that's why and this is another part of it. I am not a pop culture guy, and I used to be, but I'm really not, because I am so laser focused on where I want to go that I don't want to give any reaction to anything that's going to distract me from the future. So I'm always in on ChatGPT, always in on artificial intelligence, reading articles, playing with it, Jasper, all these different things, all these different models, to see how can I continuously be relevant and not become a relic in the future. So I am already looking forward. I mean, I'm like I told you, I'm 64, man. I'm trying to see, where am I going to be when I'm 75? I don't want to be on the anchor desk. I don't want to be running around with a camera. I want to, but I'm thinking about other things as we move forward, for sure. Or as the young folks would say, for sure.
I got 2 more questions for you, Ron. Okay. I feel like I have to ask you some sort of sports question.
Okay.
Where do your allegiances lie, and what do you think about, I guess, have you become more of a fan of what sports is here in Atlanta, and maybe the impact you think it has on this community?
Man, I'm a jilted lover. Let me tell you why. I'm a Raiders fan.
That's tough, brother. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Okay. I love my Raiders. I love the A's, and the A's may end up being the Vegas A's one day.
Yeah,
it sounds good.
Right?
Right? Vegas A's. But I'm a big time Raiders fan. And I was there when they first came into Oakland. I mean, when they first started, I was a little bitty kid. I used to pretend that I was sick on Sundays so I didn't have to go to church, so I can watch the Raiders when they played at 10 o'clock, when they played the Dolphins, and I saw the sea of hands, the catch. I saw the memorable moments. So I remember them then. Then they left and went to LA. Broke my heart. I tried to embrace the 49ers. I'm sorry, brother, because I know you're a Niner fan.
I get it.
I couldn't do it.
I wasn't an Niners fan for a long time.
It's like
either.
turning two magnets like opposite. I tried to it just
Right.
I can't do that. So anyway, when they went to LA and they won a Super Bowl, they won 2 Super Bowls. No, they won 2 Super Bowls in Oakland and 1 in LA, I think. Maybe, whatever.
One more time, man. I should probably know this.
No. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. Just keep looking forward.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever. So, but I followed them when they went to Vegas. Went to LA. Then they came back to Oakland. I'm like, hey, my team is back. And I was like in Little League football. So what do they call it? Pop Warner football.
Yeah.
We were the Oakland Raiders. We were sponsored by the Raiders. A little bitty dude with the Raiders and all that stuff. Met some of the Raider players and all that stuff. And then they went to Vegas. I'm like, I'm done with the Raiders. And I'm like, let me see what they're doing.
Right.
See who they hired. So I do have a still love for the Raiders and the A's. But I love the Braves, man. I've been to Truist Park several times. Wearing my Braves gear, got my Braves hat, got several Braves hats at home, got my Falcons gear. It's kind of hard to embrace the Falcons because I'm just not there.
Yeah.
Because I'm a Raiders fan.
I get it.
Yeah.
Ron, my final question is the classic journalism question that we all learn that you have to ask at some point. So we've got 3 cameras here, and you can look into whatever one. But is there anything that I didn't ask you, or anything that you haven't said that you feel like people need to know about you, or what's coming up in the future that people need to follow you for?
Wow, man, that's a challenging question. Well, as you know, I'm the guy that always wants to try to inspire other people. And so this is what I would say to you. If you are sitting at home and you're like, I really want to be that entrepreneur. I really want to be that teacher. I really want to be able to pursue my dreams. However, I have all these different obstacles in the way. I'm here to tell you that I am an example of how you should never give up and you continue to press forward. Even if you get knocked down, even if you stumble and fall, you continue to press forward. And the best way to do that, listen to me, the best way to do that, stop focusing on pop culture and social media and begin to surround yourself with other people, either in person or virtually, who are doing the things that you want to do. The more that you do that, you listen to positive podcasts, you read positive books, or you go to YouTube University, you can begin to inspire yourself to do great things, because it all starts up here and it ends up here. So I just want to encourage you that nothing is impossible to those who believe, but you just got to keep moving forward. You've got to keep moving forward and never, ever give up.
That's fantastic, Ron. Thank you, man. And thank you so much for coming on the show. I want to make sure I give you your flowers before you go, man. You've been an inspiration to me in my time here at 11 Alive. Having black male anchor that's from the same area and grew up the way you did. It's been an inspiration to me, and being able to have you on this platform to be able to talk to people and tell your story and really impart some wisdom, not just on me, but hopefully on everybody at home. I want to thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It has been a lot of fun. I was a little nervous, man, when we first started.
Hey,
I was like,
you got locked in though.
I got locked in. I was like, oh, okay, but I felt comfortable being uncomfortable, and we just kept it pushing, baby.
That's all you can do. That's all you can do. Ron Jones, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Is this the awkward look because
this is it,
we're going to break?
Yep. No, keep it going.